Hey everybody, it's me, Margaret, and it's beautiful outside, so technically I could be sitting outside to film this, except for the fact that it's covered in pollen. And because Mr. Roger has been out there mowing and cooking up that pollen even worse, that Mr. Roger, he's a character. He is probably late 60s, I think. And one day it was burning hot. It was the middle of summer. And I went out there to check on him to make sure, you know, he had enough water or whatever. And he said, yeah. I said, Roger, I don't know how you do it in this crazy weather. And he said, well, I gotta eat and I don't want to kill nobody, so I'm gonna work. I thought, well, there's your two choices, huh? But anyhow, we love Mr. Roger. But I have an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. We are moving to Atlanta. And it has been a huge decision for us. But Thomas loves his new school. He is thriving, he's doing so well, but it's just too far away. And luckily my husband has the type of job where his clients are all over the place, and so it's easy for us to pick up and move. The big kids are situated in their own lives, and so it's really just a matter of us moving. So we did, and we bought a house. The moving date will be May, sometime in May. We're closing in April, but we have weddings and all kinds of commotion going on between the closing and the next possible moving date would be in May sometime. So we're looking to do that. But it's going to be really sad to leave this house because we built this house and so many good, wonderful memories here. And of course, I'll never be able to find a place like my wonderful lake that I love so much. And we've got 5 acres, so you're not all up in your neighbor's face. But anyway, we do like the house that we bought, and I do have a room to put my yarn in and stuff like that, so that's good. But that will mean that Thomas can come home every weekend and have his own bed and eat his mama's food and, you know, that sort of thing. And that's what we need. And I can be involved in the school again and, you know, do things like, you know, moms do. So anyway, that's that. And as a result, things are kind of crazy and chaotic around here, as you can imagine. But still, thank goodness I have my yarn, because yarn helps make everything better, right? They say moving is one of the more stressful times in one's life. So I will need to de-stress as possible. Okay, so what did I get done this week? Well, first of all, in cleaning things out and digging around, I found this basic little crochet cowl that I did ages ago that actually matches another hat. This was done in Vanna's Choice in the very creative color name of purple. And it matches a hat that's done very similarly to this. And that's what that's all about. So I didn't do that this week, I just happened to run across it. Now here is a pom-pom I made ages ago on the big size pom-pom maker, and I just used scraps with all these different colors. And with the motorized adding machine, I actually got Red Heart to work great on it. Usually it's not a yarn that works so beautifully on my machine. However, with no tension at all, it loved it. So I didn't touch it. I just let it feed in, you know, as it went. And it did really well. There is, I've washed this, by the way, too, so we can't say that'll block out as you look at this. But can you see right here? You can tell where a tension issue came about. And that was probably where I had not pulled enough yarn and it went, you know how it does when it just doesn't want to pull from the ball. But overall, you know, it did a great job. And this is a fun way to use a whole multitude of scraps. Just make a multicolor palm and a solid color hat. Now while this is not my favorite color combination, my daughter, last year I did one that, I don't know, I just like the color combination of the scraps that I put together, and then I put it on a black hat, and my daughter loved that one and she stole it. And I've done another one with a gray hat, but this one just looked like, to me, like it was calling out for orange, doesn't it? Even though orange was, it didn't have any more orange in it than anything else. It was just yelling, make an orange hat for me. So I did. So that's that. Now also last week I did a puff stitch crochet hat by Be Hooked. This week I broke out my British yarn. This is actually supposed to be purple. Why is it blue? Okay, I look really yellow at everything around me, but at least it gives you the accurate color of this yarn. Now, this is my British yarn that Steve sent me. Do you remember when he made me the Baymax? I'll put a link to one of his videos so you can find him. But he is a Brit, and he sent me a bunch of great workhorse practical yarns from England that I hear you people talk about all the time. This one is Robin. It's actually a DK, and by using a DK instead of a worsted like the pattern called for, I got lots more puffs, and I love the way it came out. And I loved working with this yarn, Steve. This is a great, that word just comes back, workhorse yarn. It's very practical, feels good, will wash up nicely. I haven't washed it yet, but it'll wash up nicely. I can't put my finger on a yarn around here that I could compare it to. Maybe Impeccable, maybe one of the Impeccables, but I like it, and I can't wait to wash it and give you a report on how it feels. But there you go with that. And I really, really like that pattern with a DK. I just made this a little bit longer too. It's just single crochets. But, and you know what I did not tell you about this pattern? It calls for joining at the end of each row. And I didn't do that because then when you get down here, it called for just doing it in the round. So I thought to myself, why don't we just do the whole thing in the round? And it actually worked better last time when I was using that variegated yarn, because the color would flow a little bit better and it didn't have this, you know how it does when you join variegated yarn like that. So really like how this came out, and aren't y'all proud of me for breaking out some of my gift yarn? I'm so excited. And speaking of that, Sarah had given me this pattern as a gift. It was called the dice cowl, and you roll the dice and you look at what line it tells you, and that's the stitch you do for the cowl. And I completely screwed it up, and I think it's because I wasn't aware of this, but you know how there is a British crochet and a US crochet terms? There's two different things. Well, apparently there's slightly differences in knitting too. And this one has British knitting terms. I figured one of them out with the help of Erin, and then I tried to look the other one up myself, and it's just not right. So here's where I was working on that, and every time I would roll a color, I would only get these two colors, even though there's a third color involved. So I messed it up. So I got to figure out how to do that again, because I love the idea, and it was really fun to have that surprise. You know, you roll your die and you say, what stitch will I be doing? It would be something different. And what color will I be using? It's a great concept. It's a paid for pattern by Jim Watson. I'll put the link in the description box if anybody else is interested. I think she has a crochet version too. I'm not sure, but the concept is great. I just think it's really fun. So anyway, I need to start that over again. Okay, I tried to change the color back. Don't know how the graininess is. I know that I had my frames per second set for too fast for indoor. I was so excited to be able to have a 60 frame per second video, and yet it doesn't look good on the indoor. At least that's what I read about. Now, the ISO is something else that I could change for graininess in a still shot, but all the videographers tell you don't change that if you have the ability, and I'm not sure I even have the ability on this point and shoot, but it says don't change it in video unless you absolutely have to. For instance, if you're filming in a really dark place like the Haunted Mansion or something like that, because it's still going to be very grainy. All that does is actually allow light in. So, but I thought that was a possibility for a while. So I'm still messing with it, trying to get a better picture for y'all. But in the meantime, that's as good as it gets. Oh, but we did figure out what Suze's problem was. Remember how I told you she was having difficulty with the volume going up and down? Well, she's watching on her computer, and when she would put it into full screen mode so that it would be more like watching TV, that's when it would do this weird thing. And that makes sense to me, because when I speed videos up, which I do very often because I just like to listen to things faster. When I speed them up on my computer, it kind of pops and crackles and does all kinds of weird things. When I speed it up on Thomas's computer, no problem. So yes, that was the issue. So she doesn't watch me on full screen, she just watches me on regular size, and the volume is right. So see what we were talking about last week? There are so many factors involved in the volume control. What am I talking about? There are so many factors involved in making a YouTube video, getting it uploaded, and then into your device, whatever it is you're using, that so many things can be different. So you just never know exactly what you're going to see on the other side of this camera. Now, last week I was working on the kitty cat twiddle muff that we were talking about, and I totally forgot to mention that the very first place I ever heard about a twiddle muff, remember that's actually a brand name, was from Zoe 24 Karat Crochet, who then pointed me to where she learned more about it from Olivia, who is Girly Bunches. That's where I first heard about it, and then I threw myself into the research, and that's where I found the kitty cat and the puppy dog and all that kind of stuff. Now, I haven't had the opportunity to work on that anymore this week with all the different things that we've got going on, and we actually have even more going on. It's just going to be a crazy next few weeks. So, but just wanted you to know, I'm not giving up on that idea. I just haven't had a chance to put my thinking cap on for that. And speaking of putting on my thinking cap, I got a message from the Crochet Octopus. I'm sorry, I don't know your first name. But she mentioned, she was talking about those twiddle muffs, and she said, maybe all of us knitters and crocheters can think of a pattern for a sensory sock or hat. A sensory hat I knew about. This is for people who have, or generally children, but it works for, you know, of course, anybody, some sort of sensory disorder, and that could include autism, it could include ADHD, which I think I've told you before, Thomas suffers from severe ADHD. He doesn't suffer from it, we suffer from it. He actually enjoys the benefits of being able to think faster than everybody else, to move faster than everybody else, to have endless amounts of energies. There are wonderful positive points to ADHD, so don't feel sorry for him. Anyhow, a sensory hat, you can buy these things, and it's like a cap, like a baseball cap, at least most of them, and they have these square stuffed, it looks like a bean bag, for lack of a better term. And it's actually weights. The beans inside are actually pellets that, you know, have some weight to them. And it fits inside the hat, and it just, the weight helps with the sensory disorder. They also make, now she said a sensory sock too, and I have never heard of a sensory sock, so I had to look that up. And what it actually is like a body bag. It's like a big stretchy sleeping bag that you can get in, and I had never seen those before. Now, I totally missed out on this therapeutic thing when Thomas was small, or I certainly would have gotten it for him. What we used to do when he was in kindergarten was we had a strip, we called it fabric, or we called it material, which he would call material, and we put a little face on it, and he kept it in his pocket. And that, he could play with it, he could pull it out, he could play with it, and it keeps his hands busy so he wasn't playing the drums on his friend's head or anything like that. Well, what they're doing now, especially in special ed classrooms, but even in the regular classroom, are making weighted blankets, little lap blankets. And all they are picture a blanket with a bunch of squares, like maybe even a quilt. And inside each square are the weights. Maybe a total of 3 to 5 pounds in a lap blanket total. But they sell these things with maybe 8 pounds for, say, a twin size.
Actually, there's a formula to it. After further research, it should be 10% of the body weight of the person plus 1 or 2 pounds. Of course, a lap blanket would be less than that. It still is 3 to 5 pounds, but of course, the smaller the child, the lighter the lap blanket.
And they sell those, and they're around $300. And I can't figure out, Crochet Octopus, how to incorporate that in a crocheted or knitted blanket. And remember, it has to be washable. However, it's a perfect thing for sewing, and I think I'm going to try this out and make one for Thomas and see if he likes it. And I'll tell you why. Because yes, he's about to be 15 years old in May, but he still has loved blankets his entire life. And no matter what the temperature is, he's got 4 or 5 blankets that he wants to sleep with, and he rolls himself all up in them. And now that I'm reading more about this stuff, it's like, oh, there you go. A weighted blanket would have been perfect for him. So I'm going to try one of these out. However, I was looking at the price of those pellets, and for 8 pounds of pellets, it's going to cost me roughly $80 from what I can see. And I thought, well, shoot, he may not even like this thing, you know. I can certainly donate it and somebody who could, but $80 plus the cost of fabric, plus the time involved. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So the other day I was taking a walk. You know, at the end of a street, when cars are turning left or cars are turning right, there's always this pile of rocks in the middle of a street. And basically, most of it is pea gravel that was mixed with asphalt. Here, look, I got some pea gravel on my walk. I grabbed a big old handful. See, there's a penny that I also found on the ground, so that gives you an idea of the size of this pea gravel. And so you wash that up, and it should do the trick. I could probably scoop up way more than 15 pounds of this stuff. You wouldn't want it much bigger than that, I don't guess. I don't know, but there you go. Now the key thing is this, you don't want sand, because remember, this thing has to be washable, especially if you're making it for a younger child, where you could have potty problems or bleh problems or, you know, anything like that. But sand it's too hard, takes too long to dry, plus it's going to come out of the seams, and you certainly don't want that. And then, what was the other option?
The other option was rice or beans, and of course that's really not an option because you can't wash that. And unless you figured out some kind of way to make the packets removable, which I have seen on the internet, you wouldn't want to put that in something that you're going to wash.
Anyway, there's something else, and it could create mold issues. You don't want that. So you have to have something that's going to dry easily and quickly. So as I was looking at these tiny little pea gravel things, you can clean those, you can disinfect those, and throw them in the washer. And I thought, hey, that would be very easy. You just want to be sure to get the sand out. I must say this a million times in my 200 and something videos. That got me thinking, or I got to thinking. I'm always inventing something. So now that I've got the motorized Addy working, I've got to fix my kitty cat. Oh, and by the way, some of those twiddle muffs have weights in the bottom for the sensory, because theoretically an Alzheimer's patient, a dementia patient, is having sensory disorder. So that would be something else that you could add to your twiddle muff as a weight on the inside. Okay, so anyway, I got to work on that invention, if you can call it that since I'm copying. And then I am now thinking about trying out a weighted blanket with free weight pellets. But I'll have to let you know. I don't mind being your guinea pig, because if it fails, I can always tell you, don't do it like me. because that's good to know.
So this week I was making a casserole with quinoa, and it occurred to me that that's something you hear a lot about, but not everybody knows how to cook. So I thought I would throw in this little clip here.
Rice is pretty much just a filler food as far as I'm concerned. What I would really prefer to use all the time is quinoa, and that's where the quinoa comes in. Now Tucker thinks he doesn't like quinoa, but I all the time will be mixing it up with rice dishes, and he doesn't know the difference. So he's getting a whole bunch more protein, and I think it's vitamin something else, so I don't remember what it was, but quinoa is better than rice. So if you like that, use all quinoa.
Prevention magazine, prevention.com, has these really neat things they call health food face-off, and here you can see the difference between brown rice versus quinoa, 1 cup of cooked each. And it goes down here, it tells you all the different qualities or whatever, but when you get down here to the end, it tells you the score, and quinoa wins. So I'll give you the link to this so you can read it for yourself. But rice is Tucker's favorite, quinoa is better. So what I'll do is just mix in some quinoa with the rice.
Now here's the deal with quinoa. If you can get the pre-washed kind, do that, because it's kind of a pain in the neck to wash. But I have some over here that is not pre-washed. Looks like that. But it'll say on there if it is or not. But I've got some that's not, that was already opened. And I want to show you the easiest way to do this, because you can really drive yourself crazy with these tiny little grains. And see, look, they stick to the slightest amount of moisture because they're so tiny. I'll try to wash it out there. I hate waste more than anything in the world, so I do my best to get it out, but for the purpose of this video I won't be so fastidious. Now we come over here to this dirty sink and we put water in here. The thing about this quinoa, yes, you can put it in a bowl, and yes, you can stir it around with your fingers, but the problem is it sticks to your fingers, it sticks to the bowl, it sticks to everything. So the easiest way to do it is if you have a strainer of some sort in this bowl. I'll just hold this over here and strain. Do you see the water, how cloudy it is? And then you do it again. And look, see how it sticks to that, and it doesn't want to come off. So if you're using a big strainer, look, sticks to your fingers. It's so frustrating. So this way you don't have to deal with that. Now if you don't wash quinoa, it's really a pain in the neck because you'll get these little sandy feeling bites, and that's literally what you're eating is dirt. But it's just not unpleasant. It feels like when you're at the beach and you accidentally get sand in your sandwich. So it takes a lot of washing for that water to run clear. If you hold it at an angle, the water comes out easier because all those little tiny grains will block your strainer. And now it's ready. Ah! Now basically you double the amount of water in order to cook this. So if I have 1 cup of quinoa, then I'll do 2 cups of water. Most often you cook it on the stove, and when the water has absorbed, which is roughly around 20 minutes, 25 minutes, then you're through. And that's about 2 cups. And then to get it out of your jar, whoops.
Now do you see why I told you to get the pre-washed version?
You do this. Now I know this looks like a pain in the neck, but it's actually a lot easier than trying to get it out of your strainer. Trust me, I know, been there, done that. And at some point you just have to give up and say, all right, that's all the quinoa I'm going to bother getting out of there. Boy, I've made a mess with this demonstration. Don't cook like me. Now, sometimes I like to use chicken broth like I did in the rice that I'm cooking right now in the oven with this. But today I'm just doing straight water in here, and I'm going to cook this in the oven. Now, normally this is cooked on top of the stove, but I've already got my rice in here cooking. So why waste this heat, right? So I'll check that after about 25 minutes. So it took about 35-40 minutes before the quinoa and the broccoli to be ready in the oven. But I want to show you how to tell if quinoa is ready. You remember it looked like little balls. Well, now you can see what's called the germ ring. It sort of breaks apart. Can you see how it's got the little ring visible in each one of the things? And that's how you know it's ready. Okay, he's tasting it. What will he say?
In the city water system are not contributing to the lead levels in the water. That's according to the city spokeswoman. The Lifetime Joint
Here's a thumbs up.
It is. That's it.
Very good.
Aren't you supposed to say something like, the flavors meld together so, or whatever they say on those shows?
I don't know what I'm supposed to say, but it's very good.
Okay. A man of many words.
A side note, when he was chowing down on it the second day, he said, "Did you put quinoa in here?"
You know, after all that flooding that we had last week, I never thought I'd say this, but I think it's about to rain, and I'm happy about it. And the reason why is because the pollen is just outrageous already, since we are in full-fledged springtime here. So, yeah, I'm losing some of my natural light in here, but that's all I've got for this week. I'll leave you with some pictures of my my lake neighbors, as Eva put it. I'm off to make myself some tea that Brian sent and to sit down and work on my kitty twiddle muff, and I'll keep you posted on how that goes. Talk soon. Bye-bye.